Namaste, and welcome to 10 Minutes with Dr. Marc Halpern. I'm Dr. Marc Halpern, and I'm honored to share this sacred time with each of you. Today, we're going to explore loving oneself. This seems to be a journey that all of us are walking. We all could love ourselves a little bit more, a little bit deeper. And as we learn to love ourselves, we also learn to love others around us. I think at the end of our lives, what will matter is not what we've accomplished in this life, but rather, how much did we love and what was the quality of that love? How much did we love ourselves? How much do we love others? This is the real journey of our lives. I think everything else is really just part of the journey to learn the deepest lessons of our lives. And these are the lessons around love. In Ayurveda, there exists the concept of swastha. Swastha, simply defined in its most simple and most basic way, means health. But it means so much more than that. Because swastha comes from the root swa, which means self, and sta, which means to be established in ourselves. It means to know ourselves. It means to be solid in ourselves. And when we're solid in ourselves, when we're grounded and centered, we have the experience of loving ourselves. In fact, we can say that health and loving oneself are intimately connected. If we don't love ourselves, we cannot experience swastha. We cannot experience health. The journey to being healthy is the journey to learning to love oneself. Now, in Ayurveda, we understand that the capacity to love oneself is based in part on the cultivation of what we call ojas. Ojas is what gives strength and stability to the body and the mind. In the body, it stabilizes our immune system. And in the mind, it stabilizes our contentment. If we don't have enough ojas, then we experience not only weakness of the body, but discontentment within the mind. And how can you love yourself when you're experiencing discontentment? It's very, very hard. In fact, most of us look in the mirror and too often we don't like what we see. We're discontented at what we see, whether it's the nature of our physical body or we look in the mirror and we're seeing deeply into who we are and how we're living in this world. And we don't like that. We don't love ourselves. Ayurveda says that to begin with, we must have enough ojas. Ojas then gives us the opportunity to love ourselves. And if we have enough ojas, enough internal strength to love ourselves, then we have to have the clarity to love ourselves. And this is called sattva. And sattva gives us the clarity to see things about ourselves very, very clearly, and also to see things within the world very, very clearly. Sattva is a quality of the mind and of our consciousness. And when we're experiencing more sattva, we see things very honestly, very truthfully. And what we see is that we are divine beings. And we see that everybody else is divine as well. And it's much easier to love ourselves when we see ourselves as divine. It's much easier to love others when we see them as divine. So the cultivation of sattva, clarity, and the building of ojas, strength and endurance, are essential to loving oneself. With that, we can now engage in the acts of loving ourselves. And in Ayurveda, the greatest act of loving yourself is self-care. This is very important because we're nurturing ourselves. We're taking care of ourselves because we love ourselves. We take care of ourselves as an expression of that love so that we can fulfill our purpose. We don't take care of ourselves in Ayurveda just to take care of ourselves, just to live longer or just to be healthier. That does happen. but we actually take care of ourselves so that this vehicle is as healthy as possible so that it can perform service in the world. And service is an act of love, whether we're serving our families or we're serving our communities. All of that is an act of love. So self-care is extremely important. And in Ayurveda, we understand that everything that we do from the moment we wake up until we go to bed is an act of self-love. So in other words, when I wake up at an appropriate time, I do so because I love myself. When I eat food and prepare food that is healthy for me, I do that because I love myself. When I sit down to eat rather than eat on the run, I do that because I love myself. When I put oil on my body and give myself a self-oil massage in the morning, I do that because I love myself. These are all acts of self-love. When I go to bed at a reasonable hour, I do that because I love myself. And because I love myself, I'm going to feel better when I act this way. When I go to bed at an appropriate time, I wake up at an appropriate time and I feel better. And that's important to me because I love myself. And I eat nourishing food. That's important to me because I love myself. I massage myself because I love myself. Now, being that I have healthy ojas and I've been cultivating the clarity of my mind, which, by the way, meditation is a wonderful way to do that. So ojas is built through proper nourishment. Sattva, or that clarity, comes about in part, through meditation and relaxation. And now I'm taking care of myself. Well, I have now all the ingredients needed to love myself. And you know what? I'm still not going to be perfect. And I'm definitely not going to be perfect because I'm human. And when I'm human, I get caught up in the dramas of the world. And the dramas of the world sometimes make me too busy to take the proper care of myself. Sometimes the dramas of the world cause me to not eat properly. Sometimes they cause me to get a little confused and my clarity disappears. This is when all the work that I've done toward self-care and self-love really begin to pay off because, well, one of those ways in which I love myself is to be compassionate toward myself, compassionate about my imperfections, about not being perfect. Compassion is one of the facets of love. So kindness is another facet of love. I want to be kind to myself when I'm not perfect. And when I am working hard to try and live harmoniously because I love myself, I want to be generous with myself. Generosity is another facet of love. And I can be generous with myself by nurturing myself in ways in which I give myself time, generosity of time. And maybe I also spend a little bit of money on myself. And maybe I go out and get a massage. That's a wonderful act of self-love. Or spend a day at the spa. That's another act of self-love in a way that I can show myself generosity. All of these things are vitally important. But really what it comes down to is the importance of loving ourselves. If you love yourself, then you will make the changes in your life that are necessary to keep you healthy. And you'll take the actions that sustain that health. But when you don't love yourself, it's very difficult to do that. And that's where having a support team or a partner or a coach can really help you to better love yourself. So consider working with an Ayurvedic health counselor, a clinical Ayurvedic specialist, or an Ayurvedic doctor on your health and your well-being. They'll work with you by giving you the guidance you need, but not just telling you what to do, but supporting you to implement it into your life and supporting you to love yourself. In Ayurveda, our goal is optimum health and peace of mind. And we know that that can only be achieved when an individual learns to love themselves. Many blessings to you on your journey towards self-love, your journey towards self-care, your journey towards swastha, to be fully established and solid and centered within yourself. Namaste.